I did crack for about 2 months. And during that 2 months is when I made the decision to go to my doctor and have bottom surgery. And
that has nothing to do with you being trans. If I went on crack, the fact that you had bottom surgery while you were on crack does not mean that bottom surgery is the enemy. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm sorry. I try really hard not to swear. If I did crack and got into my car and got into a car accident, is it the car's fault? Is it the automobile industry that's like hurting people? Kevin, my heart goes out to you. Like, being accidentally dosed with crack is horrendous. That should not happen to anybody. And I can empathize with you, but my empathy is guided by my discernment. That does not mean that transness is evil. Your experience is valid, but the way you are using your experience to weaponize trans people is disgusting, Kevin. This man's story, he transitioned because he was on crack, and then he got his PhD in bassoon performance, and then went to do ayahuasca in Peru, and then detransitioned. Like, his story literally sounds like a movie. Go on testosterone, take ayahuasca in the desert, and get a PhD in bassoon performance. Somebody get my vision board. Jesus Christ. Well, hello ladies, and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, hi, my name is David, and welcome to my series called Dismantling Hate. Now, in this series, we look at some hateful content that's found on the internet. It's everywhere, babes. We look at transphobia, homophobia, xenophobia, anything that could be categorized as hateful and discriminatory, and there, unfortunately, is no shortage of that here on the internet. Now, we are not here to be mean. We're not here to be hateful back in a retaliatory manner, so please do not go to these people's profiles and leave hateful messages on. This is 2 hours. Anyway, sorry, I didn't think it was that long. I may not have Michelle Obama's arms, but I do in fact have her attitude, and when they go low, we go high. If you're interested in spending more time with me, I have a podcast on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok and do all the things. Besties, today is so friggin' long. We are going to have a look at a 2-hour Zoom call that is published by the Gays Against Groomer YouTube channel. If you've seen any of my other episodes here, welcome to episode 10, by the way. Double digits, love that for us. Thank you for supporting me and liking and commenting and subscribing, all the things. I appreciate you. We have looked at the Gays Against Groomer YouTube channel pretty regularly on this program here, and we've almost run out of things. I have skipped a handful of ones that don't have a video component because if I'm just listening to a podcast, I'm not really interested that much. I want to see the faces of these individuals, not like to dox them or to show them, but I want to see kind of how their faces look. So without further ado, besties, we're going to get right into it because it's 2 freaking hours. So this is going to be a long one. So buckle up, get your beverage, get a snack. You know, I just shoved a lot of pineapple in my mouth. So that's that. I'm feeling sugared up, but natural sugar. And yeah, I'm ready to go. So let's get into whatever this is. I'm going to move over so we can start.
Gays Against Groomers presents The Dark Side
like it's
of
the Disney
Rainbow.
Channel.
I'm your host, Robert Wallace. In honor of National Detrans Awareness Day,
That's a
I've
thing.
interviewed 4 detransitioners for today's episode. In the course of our over 2-hour Q&A discussion,
Yeah, that's right,
we
2
talked
hour.
to them about how they were misled and deceived into the trans ideology, or how it was even chosen for them. The insights you will hear will help you understand the mindset of someone.
Is this at 1.25 speed?
Trans
It's
identification.
already so slow.
And you're going to hear how what a person goes through during transition continues throughout their life. We dig into the deeper side of trans psychology, and we also discuss how the world, the trans community especially, receives these survivors who have gone to the end of the rainbow and back. These were hard conversations to have, but we're honored that they decided to share their stories.
I'm
with
interested.
Gays Against Groomers, the dark side of the rainbow. So, let's get to the interviews.
And I'm sure some of these things I will agree with, and I'm willing to say that.
Welcome to the dark side of the rainbow. This is a Gays Against Groomers production. Right now, we're in the midst of celebrating Detrans Awareness Day, and we have 4 members actually from Gays Against Groomers joining us. We've got Nicholas, Javier, Emma, and Kevin, and they're going to give us some insight into their detransitioning journey and help us understand more of what it's like to go through that process. So, if I could just get everybody just to say a word of introduction before we get started, we'll start with Nicholas.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Booms. I am a detransitioner. I am in the state of Illinois. I would say I'm a soul artist and graphic designer here to guide people through connecting with their hearts to connect with their deeper wisdom, because I do that visually. I love art, and it's my way of expressing who I am.
Thanks, Nicholas. And Javier.
I'm Javier. I'm from the state of California.
God, already, this is just so freaking slow. Like, we're watching it at 1.25. I'm going to say this off the get here is that I don't think I'm going to survive this whole 2-hour video. I'm going to start with this, and this is going to be my little disclaimer here, is that if these 4 individuals detransitioned, that's valid. That's valid. They can do whatever they want with their bodies, but that does not mean that they can take away what other people want to do with their bodies. If you are a detransitioner, good for you. I'm glad you're living in your truth. But the fact that you don't feel like you were trans and you're now detransitioning does not imply some sense of morality that you're better than somebody else, or that nobody should be transitioning because it's just a phase or whatever. Like, these stories are valid on their own, but when they're used to harness and like villainize trans experiences, that's when this gets messy. And that's what I hate about this. So no hate to Nicholas and Javier and Kevin and Emma. But I really wish they had a higher level of awareness here on what their stories are contributing to.
Gender ideology does to people who are vulnerable, both mentally and just whatever type of vulnerability they can exploit, basically. My detransition was very hard for me, personally.
But how is that any different? If you're a vulnerable person and you were taken advantage of, that doesn't mean that all trans people's experiences are valid. Like I just said, like if you were vulnerable, okay, maybe then you were recruited into a multi-level marketing scheme instead of being forced to transition, like they're saying. Like it's not...
Thank you for that, Javier. We'll deep dive into that. Emma.
I'm sure we friggin' will.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm in the state of Florida, and I have pretty much been an artist my whole life. I like talking about different things. I have my own YouTube stuff where I talk about my journey and hoping to help other people along the way. I kind of do a lot of things for the community as well. And I am just here to tell people that you're not alone. And maybe seeing both sides of the tale here, they can make a better educated decision, where I have never had that. And unfortunately, my situation is a lot different than most people's. But regardless, I'm still at the same end zone here. And so I'm trying to figure out, what's next. And I know it's confusing. I know it's been frustrating at times. It's been sad. It's been happy. But I realize that we're here and there are other people going through it. And that's why I love doing what I do.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Kevin.
Like, I don't have problems, but yet.
I was on estrogen for about 10 years. And I did an undergrad, master's, and doctorate in bassoon performance. And
bassoon performance.
And, I realized the university system is really corrupt and it's just only out for money. So I couldn't sleep at night doing that. So I ended up doing something else and built a business. And then,
like, not to limit his experiences,
traveling quite a bit. And my whole reason for detransitioning came from an experience I had in Peru from an ayahuasca retreat, and about a year to integrate that experience.
You went and did ayahuasca in the desert, and
now I hold a support group for both detransitioners and parents that either have kids that have transitioned and are estranged, or have detransitioned themselves, and they also join the group. And we really just go over how we can expand on through the lens of a kaleidoscope of like thoughts, feelings, and ideas, and just have a space to express, so they don't feel like they can't express it, because right now we're in a space and a culture and a society where all this is completely taboo, and we just need more spaces where we can be open and vulnerable. And
it's really interesting. Like, it's not taboo. It's not taboo. Like, you can detransition. You listening right now, if you transitioned and you're like, oh geez, I really wish I didn't transition, detransition. Do it. Literally do what is best for you, but do not take your experience and place it onto others, like these people, in my opinion, are doing here. And maybe not each individual as much as Robert is by organizing this. So we'll see.
Excellent.
It's also hilarious that Kevin, I imagine now he, him pronouns. It's hilarious now that Kevin has a PhD in bassoon performance and did ayahuasca in the desert to realize that he shouldn't be on estrogen anymore. It's a hilarious sentence. I love that.
For sharing that, Kevin. Okay, so I appreciate everybody's introduction there. I'm going to start off with the first question. We'll take about 2 minutes each to answer this, and then we'll go to the next
Jesus.
one. So for the first question,
2 minutes
I'm going to direct towards Nicholas. And I'm just going to ask you here, where do you feel that most of your direction and encouragement toward transitioning came from? Was it simply from inside? Was it from social media, parental directioning?
It's a really good question. So what first came to mind was social media. I would say I'm the type of person, I grew up with a lot of internalized homophobia and not being able to connect with people easily.
Okay, but now all of these problems allude to homophobia. Like, I almost don't even need to hear the rest of his answer. Like, if these people were vulnerable and led into transitioning when they didn't feel like they should have, those all allude to other problems that are exclusive of being trans. You know what I mean? Like, if you were vulnerable and let's say you developed an opioid addiction, it's not the opioid's fault. It's the people around that pushed you into the drug addiction or the community. Like, it's not being trans that's villainized. It would be the specific people in their lives that brought them down these paths that they don't feel was authentic. It's alluding to a structure of a system of other problems that are not necessarily related to being trans.
Lots and lots of walls and feeling like people are going to reject me was my template of seeing the world. So whenever I connected with someone, it was out of fear and feeling like I can't connect with people. So the way I could connect with people easily was through online and going through Tumblr for hours on hours, watching YouTube videos.
Not Tumblr.
That was my gateway into gender ideology because I was already feeling like there was something wrong with me. Being gay was not accepted within me, around me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to turn to the internet. Internet seemed like it was welcoming different ideologies.
What is all these people keep saying gender ideology? What does that even mean? Like, ideology doesn't imply political affiliation. Like, ideology isn't right-leaning or left-leaning. Like, ideology is just your idea about something, your idea about the world. So your ideas about gender is gender ideology. But I feel like these people use it as like the left-leaning gender ideology. It's not grammatically correct. Doesn't make sense.
I mean, gender ideology and homosexuality. So I was like, okay, this seems like something.
I'm going to take a sip of my water every time the phrase gender ideology is said. Okay, I'm already like 4 behind.
That could interest me and make me feel like I could feel safe. So that took me down a rabbit hole into putting on this ideology that if I become non-binary or gender fluid, that means I'll be loved and accepted, and that's my answer to why there's something wrong with me. And that
respectfully makes no sense.
Took me even deeper down a rabbit hole of, okay, what is transition? I went to a high school where there was at least 5 to 6 trans men and women. So
really?
I was like, I already had the mentality.
How young is this person?
Gender isn't a binary. So seeing that in the physical world where other people were trans already allowed me to be like, okay, I guess this is normal. So let me research that through YouTube, watching people on YouTube talking about like 6 signs you're trans. These are the...
Yeah, already that's a problem, right? Like researching on YouTube. Like, I'm sorry, if you're watching this video trying to figure out if you're trans, like click off, bestie. You should be here just for like the comedy of it and like unpacking some... I don't know what we're unpacking here. We haven't figured that out yet, but like, don't do research on YouTube. Like there's other, you gotta do some more informed research here. That's not just some they, them on a mic like you're listening to right now. Like, I'm educated. I'm halfway through a master's degree, but like, that doesn't mean I'm fully informed to give you advice on gender. These people were taken advantage of.
That's why you should transition. I became super fixated on the ideology that if I change my body, if I change everything externally,
ideology, I missed it.
Because internally, I had this battle of like, there's something wrong with my Adam's apple. My voice is disgusting. My body hair is disgusting. My facial hair is disgusting. My brow bone is disgusting. That was driving me even deeper down this hole of I am trans.
I don't know if like your outward expression, or I don't know if the way that you feel about yourself in all those ways can completely be influenced by those around you. Like, you have to, in order to feel self-conscious about all of those things, sure, it can be somewhat influenced by those around you, but you have to already be self-conscious about those things. Because if you felt great, like, okay, for example, I love my hair. It's great. If somebody was like, oh, David's hair is the worst, I wouldn't care because I love my hair. But if I was self-conscious about my hair and somebody was like, oh yeah, David's hair is the worst, then that would be painful for me. So it just, yeah.
So that really... the fixation of wanting to fix myself was through social media, and that was I thought was my only answer.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Javier.
Oh, no comments. We're just...
I have to say it was a combination of my at the time friend group and social media. Like Nicholas said, I kind of grew up with a bit of internalized homophobia. You know, growing up, I had heard a couple of people around me saying, you know, being gay was wrong, sinful, you know, everything under that whole spectrum of thinking.
So I think the reason these people keep saying they had internalized homophobia is that, okay, I was born a cis man and I'm gay, which means I'm a man who's attracted to men. So being gay is unacceptable in this idea. So I need to transition to female so I can still be attracted to men, but yet I'm straight. And something about that just doesn't sit right with me, because I feel like in the gaytriarchy, if we're picturing like the idea of intersectionality here and who has more privilege in the world, I feel like a queer cis man has an incredible amount more privilege than a straight trans woman. Does that make sense? There would be for the people that were projecting their homophobia onto you, I have a really hard time believing that they wouldn't also be transphobic as well. They're trying to imply by saying they had internalized homophobia that they were attempting to circumvent the homophobia because the people that were homophobic in their lives weren't transphobic. And I don't believe that for a hot second, not even a little bit. I don't think these people are lying, but I think their perspectives are very warped.
I had met a transgender man on a gay hookup app one day, and we just started talking and everything, and quite frankly, he passed so much I didn't know if he was trans until he told me after we had hung out.
Like, I'm sorry, I've spent time with so many trans people. Hell, I've been in a relationship with a trans man. Like, it's not, and never for a moment was I like, should I be trans? Like, just to try it out, like you're influencing me. It's like drugs. Like, no, that's not how that works.
And honestly, I've never even heard of the term transgender until I met him. Then I started looking into it, and he's like, you're too feminine for what you were born as. Maybe you're transgender. So I started looking into it, and it just made sense to me because growing up, I was a more feminine kid. I loved cooking.
There is something to say about that too, because there is a bit of sexism sometimes, because I am, okay, so I'm non-binary, but I'm like a trans femme non-binary person, which means that I'm very feminine, but there are parts of me that are quite masculine, and it's all participating in sexism and gender roles and all of that nonsense. But it's worth noting, I think here, like the sound of my voice is very deep. Like I'm a bass because I'm a vocalist, and like I have a beard and like my muscle tone and like my body type and shape or what, like I look masculine, but sometimes I act and sound feminine. So I have had people that say like, are you trans? Like that. And there is that kind of idea that if you're a feminine man or a masculine woman, you are inherently trans. And I don't think that every masculine woman is trans or every feminine man is trans. But that doesn't mean that doesn't invalidate trans experiences, Ugh.
My mom dresses in high heels. I'm pretty sure a good majority of gay guys have done that when they were little.
Not when I was little. The heels are right there, Mary. Still do that today.
Into, like Nicholas said, that rabbit hole of trying to fix something that was never broken to begin with, but just mainstream media made me think I was broken because I was too feminine for my biological gender.
I'm sorry, that is not mainstream media. I don't know where these people grew up, but that's not my mainstream media, convincing everybody to be trans. What? Get out of here.
I just started going deeper and deeper. I started shaving my body hair, my facial hair to be more feminine and everything.
Couldn't be me. I love my beard.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's go to Emma Dowd.
He's not going to ask any clarifying questions.
That is a very, very good question. And honestly, it's something for me. It's going to sound really, 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 really weird. But I didn't have a choice. When I was born intersexed. I had both genitals. And so the doctors decided to choose for me. And they unfortunately chose wrong. I was born 46XX CAH, which means that I have a tumor inside of my body that produces a little bit more androgen. And so that's one of the reasons that I had a little remnant of both genitals. And so they did surgery on me very, very young, and I didn't even know it. And I was raised as a man, and I could never fit in. It made school extremely hard because I remember the first time in kindergarten, kids get like those little crushes on everybody. Well, I had a crush on Michael, and he was my friend. And I came home and I remember telling my mom, I'm going to marry Michael. I'm not going to say his last name, but I remember my neighbor heard that. And what he told my mom was like, oh my God, she is, he's gay. Can't let that happen. And my mom's face completely changed. And that's when I realized I completely hurt her. And I don't know why. But at this time, whatever I'm doing, I can't do that. My mom said, I don't care what you do inside the house, but outside the house, you're a boy. I remember the first time I went and got my hair cut, and it devastated me. And I'm still kind of scarred from that. because I thought I looked like a little boy and it made me look really stupid. And so what I ended up having to do was pretend, and you would look at other men and other boys, and I would be like, what are they doing that's cool? What are they doing that's making them them? So I adapted their ideology, not their ideology, but the way that they dress, the way that they think, the things that they do. And I took it to the extreme. So if you guys ever saw, like, She's the Man in that movie, where she's like, yeah, I'm totally like a bro dude, you know, so bro. And that's what we do.
Love Amanda Bynes.
That's kind of how I was living. And I ended up having to tighten that up even more. And then in high school, I found out I was intersex because I have a uterus and ovaries and everything else. Wow. And so at that point in time, I had not taken PE yet. I was starting to develop female characteristics. And so I was I was given an option to not do anything, but potentially become very beat up, potentially even killed. And at the other side of that, I could take testosterone and stop all of it. And that's what I decided to do. The doctor said it would be perfectly healthy. Nothing will happen. And when I get out of school, if I want to change or if I want to do something else, I can. Well, that's not exactly what happened, because that testosterone completely shocked my body. The pituitary gland started to produce way more testosterone than it should, but never enough to make me a man, totally. So I started getting very sick, and I got off of it right after high school, and I thought everything would go back to normal. I could fix it, and I couldn't. And so at this point in time, it destroyed my voice. It destroyed my body a little bit. I had hair that I didn't want. And so I'm like, well, this is as good as it's going to get, and continued on with that. And then
hey there, Emma.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. We're going to go back into that. If you guys will notice, I'm going to do a little marker here when we get to our 2 minutes, just so we can get through everybody. But I want to go back into those details with you, Emma. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
I cannot believe he just cut her off like that. Okay, like, honestly, about that is a dramatic experience, and I absolutely can have empathy for this person, because that does sound hard. And I don't want to take away from those adverse childhood experiences, because that would inform the rest of your life in so many ways. However, this individual's experience is not... I don't understand who they're arguing against. Like, maybe there are gender radicals who exist out there in the world who think once you transition, you can never go back and it's irreversible. I mean, like, girl, look at Kevin. He's sitting here looking mask as hell. Sorry, I'm trying not to swear. Look at Kevin. He's sitting here like looking like a man because he wants to be, and he was on estrogen for 10 years. And like, it's not like these things are completely irreversible. It's not like your life is ruined. Like, is there no room for mistakes? Is there no room in your life to make changes about things? I think there is. Why can't there be? And I don't think it's bad that these people transition. Like, I don't understand what we're doing here. How is this gays against groomers? Like, does groomer mean grooming kids into transitioning? Because, like, was it the doctor? It sounds here like Emma is blaming like her homophobic neighbor, her mom, her doctor. Like, I get it. And these conversations need to be had around gender, but under the umbrella of gays against groomers, they are perpetuating this kind of homophobia and transphobia that contributes to the decision-making of people like this in Emma's life when she was young. So I don't understand how these people don't have the self-awareness of, yes, their stories are valid and their experiences are valid, but what are they trying to do? What is the goal with this? Are they trying to make it so that nobody else transitions ever? Or that people know that detransitioning is an option? Because people should know detransitioning is an option, but they should have the autonomy to make that choice themselves. And it shouldn't be the choice of the adults around. I can get on board with that. Nobody should be making these choices for children. We should be supporting children when they are making their own decisions. And I feel like these people would have a problem with that as well. But that is my big old assumption. So now Robert interrupted Emma. Is it time to hear from Kevin? I think so.
Okay. All right. So let's move into the second question. Again, I didn't want to interrupt you, Emma, because we're already going to be talking about that.
Hey, we didn't hear Kevin.
Full on here in a minute. Nicholas, what were your reasons for detransitioning?
Yeah, Kevin looks shocked. Did I black out for Kevin's?
My reasons for detransitioning? I would say...
Yeah, he's like, okay.
The mental health aspect was a huge deal.
F my drag, right?
As I medically transitioned for 3 years, it was intensifying my anxiety and depression to the point where I wanted to off myself a lot. The social anxiety was intense to the point where I didn't want to go outside and chat with people. And on top of that, there were lots of feelings of doubt.
Again, that's valid for Nicholas's experience, but it's not a comment on transness as a whole.
I went through getting the hormone medication without even consulting with a therapist. I got it through Planned Parenthood, who just gave it to me I met with the therapist there for 30 minutes, and they just gave me estradiol and spironolactone so that I could transition.
That is okay. Like, we watched a video here on the Gays Against Groomers where they would do that without parental consent, and I don't know how I think about that. I do think that if you're old enough, I don't know what that age should be. There's got to be some developmental science and research behind on what that age should be, but like it stands to reason that if you're 16 years old and your parents are not allowing you to transition, you should be able to seek out that gender affirming care yourself. But like Nicholas just said, it probably needs to be longer than a 30-minute meet with a therapist, because you would be able to be doing things that maybe you would regret and would contribute to a negative life experience, like Nicholas is saying.
Have any extensive they didn't look into my background of my traumas, my internalized homophobia.
Stop.
So when I was starting to develop a spiritual practice to connect with my heart, my soul, the more I did that and self-reflected, I realized, okay, like I didn't actually self-reflect to choose to transition. Why did I transition? And the more I dug into self-reflecting, reasons why I had the belief system that I had, reasons why I believed there was something wrong with me, what were the feelings there? What were the underlying feelings that caused me to believe those thoughts?
Okay, that's all important.
It was a lot of examining who I was to the point where transition didn't make sense anymore.
Okay.
I remember recalling and thinking to myself, if my body is fully equipped to be able to be healthy without taking these 2 pills, why am I taking them? Like, if I can fix my brain.
I don't know what that means with like fixing your brain and being healthy, and that's problematic there.
And change the way I think and see and perceive the world. Can I just do that internally without doing that externally?
Wow, thank you for that. Javier, what were your reasons for detransition?
Are we going to ignore Kevin the whole time I live?
My reasons were mainly due to mentality and just my mental health in general.
Are they all going to say the same thing?
At one point in the same month, I've tried to off myself twice. First, I tried to OD myself, and then the second time, I just lost it and just started walking towards the bridge. But something told me to call, the suicide hotline. And that person was able to talk me out of it. It was just, my whole transition was just full of negative effects, nothing positive whatsoever. And it was just so bad that my depression and anxiety basically had me bedridden until I tried to not be alive twice in the same month. And the night that I...
That's absolutely fair, and it's horrendous that these people went through that. And those ideas, those ideations of unaliving yourself, I would not wish that on anyone. But again, that has nothing to do with being trans as a whole. 2 years ago, I was taking Accutane because I was really struggling with acne, and I was engaging in some of those ideations. I was depressed. I was full of anxiousness. I was on a stress leave from work. I was going through all of these horrific things. It was one of the worst times in my entire life. That doesn't mean that Accutane doesn't work for everybody, right? My experience with something is valid, just like theirs, but that doesn't mean that Accutane shouldn't exist anymore because of my adverse experience.
And the person on the hotline convinced me not to do it. My friend finally found me and just, out of reaction, slapped me across the face and then hugged me and started crying, saying that he couldn't lose me. And I just broke down, cried, vomited up whatever pills I had took. And that's when I knew that I needed to stop taking these horrible medications that were just causing me to act out like this in a way that I never acted before. No, stop. Like, honestly, my heart breaks for these people that they had these experiences. I can empathize with it for sure, but my empathy is guided by my discernment, and it's not for you. You shouldn't have been on those drugs. Absolutely. I can get on board with that. They had those adverse effects on you, but that doesn't mean they're going to work that way for everybody. And it was just a horrible experience in my life. I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy or wouldn't want anyone else to go through.
Wow. It's clear that there's a lot of deep depression a lot of people go through, not just in your school years, but when you're going through this kind of issue, it seems like it's a very particular kind of hurt and struggle. And so I'm grateful for you guys sharing that with us. Emma, can you tell us about your reasons initially for...
I love how this has turned into a screw Kevin call. Did we not hear from Kevin? Did I black out? I swear we didn't hear from Kevin. I hope Robert ignores him again. Not because I hate Kevin, but it's a thing now.
Detransitioning.
Mostly health. That was one of the things that I needed to do. And like I said, my situation was a little bit different. So I would need to have gone to get testosterone to stay the way that it was. But health is a big problem, and my health is still a big problem. And I think the other thing is mentally. Trying to be something I wasn't was draining me. I looked sickly. I was mentally destroyed. I did try to commit suicide a couple of times, about twice. One time I almost succeeded, and I'm really glad that I didn't. And just kind of...
I wonder what the science is, or like the statistics are behind that, because all three of these individuals said that same thing, and they said twice. I wonder what the significance of that is. That's almost like beyond a coincidence at this point. I don't know.
Just kind of just wanting to live my life the way that I should have, as opposed to trying to pretend my way through it. I think that was the biggest,
which is
one of
fair.
the biggest reasons that I did.
That's fair.
Decide to not pursue it and just see how nature would end up.
Well, nature isn't always the way, but okay.
Thank you. And Kevin,
tell
us about what sparked you onto your
Thank God.
I think, put it shortly, is a suppressed masculine spirit that ended up getting really pissed off.
A suppressed masculine spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, suppressed masculine spirit.
When you deny who you really are, it gets harder and harder to fake what you're trying to fake.
But how do we not have the self-awareness to see that if you're trying, like, wouldn't it be possible that if you were born a cis man and you were trans and you were living as a cis man instead of transitioning, that you would be ignoring who you are, and it gets harder and harder to fake yourself? Like, how do these people only see it to be true from their side, from one experience? Like, I can sit here and say that their experiences are valid and they should have the autonomy to do what they want with their bodies. And I think it's great that they were able to move through these terrible adverse experiences and ideations about ending their lives. Like, I can see that from both sides. Why can't they?
You know, I mean, within the first month of starting estrogen, I had started a 9-year path of manic depression and suicidal attempts. I was hospitalized twice.
I'm sorry, that is, you can't say that's just because of the estrogen. I'm pretty sure I would double down on that too. It's not just because of the estrogen. You can't tell me there was nothing else going on in this man's life.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of impressive deep darkness that stems from it when you're just trying to play God with your own body, essentially.
No problem.
I was lucky enough for the
Ooh, trying to play God. Ooh, that's just still sitting with me, right? Do you feel it? That's weird. This is really squishy and I keep playing with it. Anyway.
The first month before you go down, you're supposed to get rid of anything that stimulates your nervous system, so anything that numbs you or it helps you disassociate. So, like, you know, bad food, sex, drugs, alcohol, any kind of screen time, any music, anything that stimulates it. Like, you want it to be in a very calm state for like a whole month prior. And by doing that, that's what allowed me to realize and to communicate with myself on a very honest level, because I wasn't disassociating by, you know, addictive things that our Western culture more or less forces down our throats.
That's not just Western culture.
Yeah, and there's...
like, if we're talking about Western culture, this is just a whole other conversation here about indigeneity and the colonizer and the relationship and two-spirit individuals and gender roles, and it's all... No.
As a cherry on the top, it would be the countless times my doctors just absolutely screwed up my estrogen dose, and they had my levels like 3 times higher than like a pregnant woman. So like I would just...
So then, okay, well, that makes sense why you were experiencing all of those adverse things. But that doesn't mean that, like, the Jane Doe next door who's getting the appropriate dose of estrogen, it doesn't mean she's gonna have the same experience as you and needs to transition. God.
You know, I feel like I'm going insane. So
I feel like I'm going insane.
Feel like I actually have my feet on the ground.
Good. But like, okay, so now Kevin is on tea, but if he was given the wrong dose of tea, he would have an adverse experience.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'm aware ayahuasca and the plant medicine family helps a lot of people in a lot of different ways, so it's very interesting.
Shut up, Robert.
Right there.
Everybody, every trans person, all you need to do is just have some ayahuasca in the desert, get a master's in bassoon. No, sorry, not a master's. Get a PhD in bassoon performance, and you won't need to be trans anymore. That's all you need to do. Go on testosterone, take ayahuasca in the desert, and get a PhD in bassoon performance. Somebody get my vision board. Jesus Christ.
We're going to circle back around to Nicholas. And the next question is, where for you has the greatest source of mental health challenges come from during your detransition? So we're talking about confusion, identity crisis, depression, anxiety. And do you feel
he's just feeding them answers? He's like, hey, so what happened? And tell me about confusion, depression, and anxiety and identity issues. Like he's really coaching? No, that's not the word. Is it coaching? I don't know.
Mental health support is widely available as the need is, as widely as the need there is for it.
So is your question saying like, where did the need to transition originate?
Well, I guess specifically...
No, he's saying, tell me how depressed you were so I can make it more shocking.
Free to answer this any way you want, including if that's something that comes to mind you want to talk about. But where has the greatest source of mental challenges during the detransition come from? Was it from your medicine? Was it from buried emotions? However you want.
Yeah, I would say...
Somebody say ideology, because I'm getting thirsty here.
It was emotional. I was the type of person that would suppress emotions, and I was dissociated to the point where I was floating over my body. A lot of times, like I wasn't
nothing
present.
to do with being trans.
So I think that was a huge part of unpacking the emotions. Like there was lots of shame, there was lots of anger, there was lots of sadness, like really, really deep sadness.
Nothing to do with being trans. All of it's valid.
And really had to connect with my inner child that felt suppressed of his feminine.
It's all valid. It's all valid. It's all valid, Nicholas. I'm here with you. I'm present. I'm empathizing. That's all hard shit to go through. It doesn't have anything to do with being trans.
For so long, thinking that transition was the correct answer, but not like really reflecting back.
I mean, okay, that is to say that for Nicholas, it had to do with being trans, but for everybody, it's not a comment on everybody.
Childhood where I think from the age of 7, I was like pressing on my Adam's apple every single day, hoping to not have that come out. And really journaling that out. I remember.
But from age 7, and he said that his motivation was from social media and Tumblr. Was he on social media and Tumblr at 7 years old before he was worried about his Adam's apple? He should have just been morbidly obese, right? Like me, and nobody can see it. Anyway, I'm going to lose it as time goes on here. But you know what? We're 26 minutes in. This is extremely entertaining, but in all the wrong ways.
As a little kid, as soon as I saw pubic hair, like that was such a shameful moment of like, oh my God, I'm becoming a man. My body is rejecting me. My body is...
Women have pubic hair? What?
Me having those deep, dark feelings finally be addressed. Parts of why it was difficult to detransition was the fear of being judged. I was afraid that if I admitted to my mistakes, people would hate me, people would reject me. I thought people would stop being friends with me.
That's fair. That's fair overall. That's fair overall with anything. A lot of people feel really challenged by admitting their mistakes, and that's real and that's valid. Absolutely.
Just because, you know, like admitting that you did something wrong and made a mistake is hard.
Yeah.
Especially with claiming a new identity, saying, oh, I go by this name now, you know, and then
sure.
Now you're retracting to going back to your birth name. It's just like, it's so confusing for your family members and friends. So it's just like, it was very scary to confront that and tell people that.
Absolutely. But you can't tell me that the discomfort that you would feel by admitting your mistake wouldn't, like, what would be worse? Reteaching your family your new name and pronouns and your new gender expression, or living in a gender expression that you don't align with for the rest of your life? It's a big assumption I'm making here, but I think reteaching your family and friends your name and pronouns would be easier than living in gender dysphoria for literally the rest of your life. Nicholas looks young. That could be another 70 years. So is it like a couple of months of having your people reaccustom themselves to how you're expressing yourself, or 70 years of gender dysphoria? How do we not...
Wow. And just as a quick follow-up to that, how would you advise other people who are going through the same thing, or maybe too afraid to say, all right, everybody, I know I had you all on the ropes about
this. Wow, his hands look huge.
Course.
I would say, this is your life. Like, just start saying to yourself, I choose me. Because for a long time, like, when you let mental illness control your life, that's not choosing yourself. That's choosing some darker aspect of you that isn't loved and integrated. You can't love yourself.
You cannot love yourself out of a mental illness. I think that's the first problem I have there, is that a lot of mental illness does need... is Kevin crying or is he bored? You can't love yourself out of a mental illness most times. There is that's very harmful to say that. You can't just love yourself out of a mental illness. That puts the onus on people of like, oh, you have anxiety and depression. That's your fault. You should just love yourself more. What? You've got to be kidding me. You need the support of a medical professional, of a mental health medical professional, in order to deal with so many mental problems and mental health issues. That's incredibly harmful, what Nicholas just said.
Your life. But when you say,
like, you need to love yourself, sure, but it's not going to get you out of your mental health problems.
Myself, by choosing to go off the medication, by choosing a path to self-discovery and self-acceptance, that is a way healthier path than going on medications and still suppressing yourself so that your true soul doesn't get to express this life in this life, basically.
It's not everyone's experience. It's valid for you, but
all right, Javier, can you tell us where you think you found the most damaging or troublesome mental distractions or struggles during your...
He is so coaching them into giving the worst possible answers. I thought I would be bored with this, but I am not at all. This is some tea. Nobody said ideology, but I'm getting dry here.
Like with the last question, it was just mainly my depression was just awful.
That's valid.
Was just something so unbelievably hard to admit to myself that I made the worst mistake of my life. That I felt like people would think that I was just attention seeking, that I was just looking for attention.
Yep, I can see that.
And people would try to tell me that, oh, I'm just trying to play a victim. That way I can, you know, just act a certain...
Drinking out of a mason jar. That is so campy. I love it.
Towards people if... You know, like,
even with a lid on it, I'm going to scream. Oh, that's
you're
so
only
funny.
saying this to me because I'm trans, you know, stuff like that, that way I can play a victim on a constant basis.
Sure. It would be a concern.
And just emotionally, I was just constantly suppressing how I was feeling. I think about once I hit a year on estrogen, I realized I was making a mistake, but I just kept pushing down. I was like, oh, it's just nerves, you know. I kind of described it as pre-wedding jitters. It was just something that was just impossible to do alone. But I was forced to do it alone until I finally detransitioned, where I was finally able to get recommendation to see a therapist over Zoom. It took 3 doctors to do it because 3 doctors didn't want to come anywhere near me because I was starting to detransition.
I'm not going to say that he's lying, but that seems hard to believe. That seems really hard to believe. I don't know what that is. What is that? That's weird.
And it was just...
And you can tell, like, Nicholas in the top corner here, like, when he just said that, they're like, wow. I think there's something about, like, immaturity, and I see it a lot in young people, and I know that I did this myself as well, is that if you're, like... It's a kind of being too overexpressive with your face. It just shows immaturity. It's like reacting with your face in such a way that you can tell is not a genuine human reaction. It's like it's dramatized to imply something to other people. It's almost like you can see the wheels turning of the individual in order to come off in a certain way by their facial expressions. I don't know. That's super random and like a tangent, but I think about that a lot. And I'm seeing that in Nicholas a lot. And I haven't seen it anywhere else with these people because I feel like Nicholas is probably the youngest in this lineup. I always pause it right as they stop talking.
And I also appreciate you guys struggling with my terribly worded question here.
Yeah, it is bad.
I think part of what I'm trying to get out of this particular question is to show people from the other side a part of the struggle that you go through when you go through detransitioning that doesn't really get talked about. Sometimes we talk about the depression leading up to wanting to detransition, or the depression during being transitioned, and even the depression after being completely detransitioned. But, you know, there's that whole intermediate lull where you're getting off of the stuff they put you on, or you're...
Again, I'm going to say this. The pain of detransitioning probably, in my opinion, in most cases, is lesser than living with gender dysphoria for your entire life if you never did it. Or if you were suppressing your transition.
Your relationships, like you were just talking about, Javier, you know, with how people see you and stuff. So, all right, Emma, you're back in the saddle.
You.
All right. For me, I was scared about what my family would say because they didn't know that I knew. So I thought that I might lose a lot of family and friends. And a lot of them probably would have thought that I was lying. So at the same time, or that I lied to them. So at the same time, I was...
It's a real fear. I get it.
And that sent me into quite a bit of depression. The second part to that was I was married. And I was married to a female. And I really thought that when I was going to tell them the truth, that they would leave me. And honestly, I wouldn't have blamed them. And so that was making it really, 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 really hard for me to accept who I was. And I started looking at myself as this monster that created all these lies and hurt people, including myself. The other thing that I kind of got a little bit of a depression from too was I got body dysmorphia, which was a little bit different because I never had gender dysphoria, but I now have something that I got to deal with, and I'm dealing with it every day because I look at myself and I see the stuff that I did to myself and how ugly I am. And I think that I think I'm ugly. I think that I am a disgusting human being. And I constantly look at myself in the mirror. I'm constantly judging myself. And anybody that's talked to me in the last few years have realized I am brutal on myself. And that's going to cause another form of depression if I continue doing that. So I have been seeking.
Are there different forms of depression you can have in conjunction with each other? I don't.
Therapy. I went to a therapist that really has understanding of all this type of stuff, and it's not somebody that just wants a paycheck to tell me what I want to hear.
Yeah, there it is. There's the problem I have here. You know what? Again, like my heart truly breaks for Emma. Like this is such a hard story, and feeling like you need to live within your transition to not lose your partner. Like that's really sad. That's heartbreaking. These stories are so valid. I don't have disdain for any of these people except Robert. But the way that they're using their stories to platform to say that nobody should be transitioning, I don't know if that's the subtext here either, but they're weaponizing their stories here in ways that will potentially manipulate other people in the ways that they were manipulated supposedly into transitioning. Not even supposedly. Like I believe them. I don't think anybody's lying about anything here on a big scale. I think they're being honest. But the way that they're using these stories to demonize trans people and like doctors, like no, it might be different in the US, but are doctors really making money if they make people transition? Huh?
She tells me what I need to hear. And I think that is so vitally important. I do believe that this stuff is out there for people if we look. Sometimes we just go to the easiest route and the easiest solutions, and we want to find somebody that's going to affirm whatever we're saying. And I think that's the most dangerous therapist out there. I don't even think they should be practicing at that particular point if that's what they're going to do. So I have a wonderful therapist.
So you had a bad therapist. Okay, that's valid, but that doesn't mean everybody else does.
He's gotten me through a lot of this stuff. I surrounded myself with a lot of friends that have helped too, to help me feel better about myself. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to that point though. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get over what I did to myself, but I'm taking it step by step every day. Depression is very strong. And I just hope that I come out okay. And if I don't, and this is as good as it's going to get, I'm going to be happy with that.
Oh, Emma.
Thank you, Emma. And so for those of you who can't see, because you'll see on the radio, Emma is a beautiful person. And for that matter...
What a weird thing to say. What a weird thing to say. And all the other three are ugly. No, he's going to say they're all good looking now, which is so weird to say. It's so weird to say.
Nicholas is a beautiful person. Javier is a beautiful person. Kevin is a beautiful person, inside and out, all of them. So I'm very sorry that you are struggling with that component of this issue. The next question, Nicholas, did you have any...
We didn't do Kevin.
Yeah, get bent, Kevin. Finally, Nicholas is advocating for Kevin.
We didn't do Kevin.
Oh, no, Kevin's off the show. We changed the plan. No,
okay.
Sorry, Kevin.
Ew.
Okay, Kevin, I'm sorry.
What a gross thing to say. What an awful joke to try and make Kevin not feel included. Like, I know I've been joking about it, but honestly, he's here sharing his vulnerable story with you, and that's how you're going to act to him when you made a mistake. Ugh.
Are you ready for this one? I'm going to go back to it. Sure. The biggest problems you had while going through the detrans process.
Yeah. I was doing a master's degree in British Columbia, and
whoa, British Columbia? That's like 2 hours away from me. Whoa, the call's coming from inside the house.
Smoking weed with a bunch of friends. A guy came in.
Smoking weed regularly is bad for you. I'm going to say that right now. If you do it anecdotally and you're of age and you're in Canada where it's legal, go for it. But if it's a daily habit, look into it. It's doing things to you that you don't realize. Anyway, that was my experience. It might not be yours. It's probably yours. Research it. Don't listen to me. Look on Google Scholar and figure it out for yourself. That was random.
Not usual to the group. I took a hit of what he had. Turned out to be crack. I did crack for about 2 months. And during that 2 months is when I made the decision to go to my doctor and to have bottom surgery. And
that has nothing to do with you being trans. If I went on crack, okay, I'm fine. I'm composed. I wouldn't be acting like this if I wasn't alone in this office right now. The fact that you had bottom surgery while you were on crack does not mean that bottom surgery is the enemy. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm sorry. I try really hard not to swear. If I did crack and got into my car and got into a car accident, is it the car's fault? Is it the automobile industry that's like hurting people?
A month before graduation, I quit that, went cold turkey, finished my master's, did everything I needed to. Surgery was like a week after graduation. Flew up for that.
You're telling me that your doctors didn't realize you were on crack? Were you on crack the whole time? Like literally for an entire 2 months? There's so many questions I have here, and I'm not going to get any of the answers.
And I never really even processed that that decision was made when I was blasted off until recently. And that was, surgery was in 2016.
I have whiplash.
Definitely one of the hardest parts has been processing that alone for me, because, you know, I was accidentally dosed, and then, you know, just, you know, I didn't have any screening for surgery. They just gave it to me, you know, and it's just, you know, yeah, it's.
I know people that have had bottom surgery. There is screening, especially in Canada, because he said he had to fly out for it, and that usually takes place in Montreal, which is across the country. There is screening. That's not something you can do on a whim. And again, Kevin, my heart goes out to you. Like, being accidentally dosed with crack is horrendous. That should not happen to anybody. And I can empathize with you, but my empathy is guided by my discernment. That does not mean that transness is evil. Your experiences are valid, but the way you are weaponizing them, like, should I write that on my forehead? Should I get a whiteboard and put that right here? You can't see that, because, or should I get it on a whiteboard and put it right here? Your experience is valid, but the way you are using your experience to weaponize trans people is disgusting, Kevin. Robert should have skipped over you. No. Everybody can share their story, and that's fine. Jesus, Herald Christ.
Yeah, it's it's awful. It's super shitty.
Yeah,
you know,
I would agree.
But I'm definitely lucky that, you know, I have the amount of self-love that I have, and the amount of community and everything else I have. But yeah. Again,
you can't always self-love your way into happiness. That's harmful to people sometimes.
You know, processing something like that to that dynamic is it's no joke. You know, and so it makes sense why
crack is no joke.
Taking me, even after coming back from Peru, where, you know, my path was obviously set.
Yeah, fix it with more drugs. I don't know.
8 months to integrate that experience to get me to the point where I'm at, which is 8 months off, 8 months on to stop.
This man's story. He transitioned because he was on crack, and then he got his PhD in bassoon performance, and then went to do ayahuasca in Peru, and then detransitioned. Like, his story literally sounds like a movie. This is extremely entertaining for all the wrong reasons.
No, so yeah, it's not been easy.
Can I ask a quick question? Yeah. How have you been processing that experience?
What a deep question, Nicholas.
There's a lot of things that I believe have happened. You know, there's a lot of different possibilities that you can frame it. You know, human beings are made of, their consciousness is made of the stories that we tell ourselves, right? We have the power to tell whatever story we want to tell ourselves.
Not always. To an extent, yes, I agree, but not always. Again, it's like, it's harmful to say that all of the onus of the human experience is placed upon you exclusively, and you have the power to do anything you want. We have an incredible amount of power on our own lives and our own outlook and our own sense of consciousness and body image and all of that stuff. But not every bit is under our control. Yikes.
You know, I'm very much convicted to truth and honesty, and
to your truth, which isn't everybody else's.
At the end of the day, I'm really grateful for the psychedelic experiences I've had to see what we're really made of. And I believe we're just made of balls of light that's made of love. You know, I mean, and to know that that's inside me and I have access to that at any given point in time, that's, you know, that's what pushes me to, you know, do the support group and you know, not be able to sleep at night if I'm not helping the community.
God.
Thank you for that, Kevin. And
we're all balls of peace and love. I know that's right. You say it with your chest, Kevin. What the hell?
Let me just open this up by saying, feel free to interject if, like just now, if you have a question of somebody. Because one thing that I know is y'all are going to have very specific and more informed questions probably for each other than I would even be able to ask. So
yeah, 40 minutes in, and now he says that.
All right, Nicholas, I truly am back to you this time. I apologize about that, Kevin. Now we are at the question, did you have any medical complications?
I don't think so. I'm grateful for that. The only thing that I really did was go on hormone replacement therapy for almost 4 years. I feel like what was horrible was the fact that I met with an endocrinologist in Milwaukee, and he didn't even need a waiver that came from a therapist saying that I have gender dysphoria. I just told him I'm trans, and he's like, here you go, let's start giving you your hormones. Let's meet every 6 months and see where your levels are at. But I think he was kind of informed of how much estrogen and testosterone needed to be in a biological female body.
Well, then that's a problem in itself, and that has to do with that endocrinologist exclusively and not transness as a whole. I feel like it keeps
able to compare that with the biological male body. So there wasn't any complications that was detrimental other than mental health. I think the only thing that really affected from the medication was my mental health and making me feel like I was insane every single day. I would say as I took the estrogen and spironolactone.
Was that the medication or was it the gender dysphoria? There is a distinction with a difference there.
I did get a lot of fat tissue around my chest area.
Because
so it's been like almost 2 years of trying to work out to the point where I can get that, not be like, the fat, redistributing the fat so that it doesn't look like, some sort of a breast. You
can't work out to redistribute fat. Do we not know that? It's impossible to like spot treat fat loss like that. Hey, I can tell you, I gotta, anyway. Like that's very well known and very well documented and researched and proven, is that you can't spot treat fat loss like that. Overall, you can lose fat and everything gets smaller, but it's not like you're just working out your chest to get, if you're building up muscle around the fat, sure, but you're not about to redistribute your fat by working out in specific ways. It literally does not work like that. And I think that's what's scary about this, is that these people are just like purporting things that they believe is fact, but they are not. And it's like they're almost pulling from any different thing to fit their experience and match their narrative. And it's scary. It's scary. And I've been there. I get it. It's easy to fall into that kind of thing, but ooh, yikes.
I've noticed a couple of people have brought up the question or the matter of how little investigation or therapy scrutinizing you'd gone through prior to being put into this process. So I want to take note of that, and if anybody cares to elaborate on that as we go, I think it's important for people to know who think you get a lot of research and you're carefully put through, and just how easy it is to get through nowadays. Javier?
Is it nowadays? Because Kevin did that 10 years ago.
Any issues through your process? Was it pretty smooth sailing for you?
No, actually it wasn't. So I already have a pre-existing medical condition, asthma. It differentiates depending on the weather. Like if it's just really cold one day and then the next day it just shifts to like 100 degree heat, my asthma starts to act up.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense.
The nurse that I consulted with through a online hormone distributor was apparently giving me 5 times the normal hormonal dosage of a non-pregnant person, pregnant woman.
The way that they're all like Kevin and Nicholas's experience, Kevin and Nicholas's facial expressions right now are just like, yep, because that's what happens. They just want to overdose you with estrogen. I'm like, no, maybe that nurse was an idiot and that's fair and valid, but it's not referring to some like trans agenda. She was just an idiot.
When I found that out,
And also, how do you know? How did you find that out? How do you know that's valid? Like, lower your eyebrows, Kevin.
Happened when I got home from the doctors. I almost destroyed my room because of how pissed off I was. A neighbor did call the cops because they thought I was beating someone. And I was home by myself. But now I've noticed, and
the way that Robert looks so checked out.
I noticed that my lung capacity is a lot shorter. It's a lot worse. That even were I to have an asthma attack, I'd probably be hospitalized. Like that's how bad my lung capacity is. That now I somewhat have to live in fear of just having a medical episode that I'd have to be hospitalized.
Is there a correlation between lung?
I do forget to bring my.
Sorry, is there a correlation between lung capacity and high estrogen levels? I don't know. I don't think he knows either.
There's been times where a good month or two straight, the weather's fine and I'm fine. Then out of nowhere, asthma attack. That's just the main thing. It's just my lung capacity.
How are we definitively connecting that with estrogen?
I was shorter, and now I do have to live in a bit of fear of being hospitalized because of it.
Wow, it's a very scary situation. Do you remember the question? Basically, how's your?
Yeah, I do. I remember it.
Okay.
For me, there has always been some type of health issue. When I started to take the testosterone in high school, I developed an early form of MS, which I would have gotten anyway at this point in time in my life, probably around now when I'm in my 40s, as opposed to doing it when I was 19. So I've been struggling. It made it very hard for me to get a job. But the biggest problem that I have, and I didn't know this until I literally stopped taking testosterone and my testosterone stopped making itself by itself, is that for a short amount of time, my estrogen was just a little bit higher than the testosterone was. And then I started kind of really going insane. I was having manic depression. I was angry. I was happy. I mean, if you want to talk about what bipolar would be, that's pretty much what happened. And so one of my friends said, you know, you really need to talk to a therapist about this. And so I did. And the therapist recognized right away. He goes, I think this is something far more dangerous than what we think it might be. You need to go get yourself tested for hormones. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that my hormone levels were almost zeroing each other out. So I had almost no hormones for approximately about 7, 8 months.
Okay, well, that's not how hormones work. They don't cancel each other out to a zero level. But yeah, hormones can really take a toll on your emotions and your mental outlook. So I can understand what she means. Yeah.
And I was getting very, very sick. My body was just beat up. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I felt healthy. You know, and that's what kind of really got to me.
But at the same time, you felt healthy? What?
And now that I've been to the doctor, they pretty much said, okay, do you want to be a boy or you want to be a girl? Because at this point in time, for probably the rest of your life, you're no longer producing hormones to be either one or the other. And if you stop, they're going to zero out. So unfortunately for me, I will have to be on either testosterone or estrogen the rest of my life. And that's something I really, really am struggling with, mentally dealing with.
But does that have to do with your wrongful transition? I'm struggling to see the connection.
At one point in time, I would have been fine. My estrogens would have been completely normal had I just not done anything.
Do you know that though?
It's going to cost me at least $60, $70 a month
Maybe
for the rest of my life. And it is frustrating. And on top of that, the complications that I've had from all of this stuff have impacted my MS. In fact, when I was on, they put me on too much progesterone to try to take care of the uterus that I have. They treated me as a female to male to female detransitioner, and they didn't look at my health condition. And what that caused me to do was put on a lot of hormonal weight. And when
again, shitty doctors. Like sure, okay, valid.
And you know, and you're a little bit more overweight, it puts a lot of pressure on your diaphragm. And my diaphragm is one of the hardest hit by my MS. So I can really have a hard time breathing, even though I'm not like short of breath. My oxygen levels are high. It's just, I can't expand my chest correctly. So unfortunately, to try to resolve that, I had to go through a liposuction to try to remove some of that fat off of the area so I could just function and breathe correctly.
Wow.
Not me. Anybody who tells you the stuff is reversible or that it won't affect you later on, what does the group think here? Not true? I mean, I guess you got to check every one of these things, but because there's so many different elements and they all have their side effects.
Everything has a side effect. Everything has a side. Literally everything has a side effect.
Nicholas saying. All right, Kevin, can you tell us about your transition process, complications, unexpected things?
Yeah, I mean,
I am ready for the most unhinged thing to come out of this man's mouth. I'm so ready.
The suicidal ideation and attempts was a big one.
Okay, well, that's sad.
And, looking back, it's wild on how I just took that in stride. I mean, it got so bad even during my master's, where it was middle of the week, and I planned to do it, and grabbed a rope and tied it to a tree, tied a noose, and jumped. And if it wasn't raining, it wouldn't have slipped, and I wouldn't be here anymore. And so, I mean, it's just crazy.
It's so sad, but the way he talks is
my surgeon recommended that we had ice, which is good, but I fell asleep with the ice pack on, and so I gave myself frostbite.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is everything this man says from the set of a movie? Like, who's writing his life? This is insane.
That had the effect of my sutures opening up, and I'm all healed now, and
it's all valid. It's all sad. It's all horrendous.
It doesn't look like anything happened, which is wild because it, it's just insane. Yeah, I mean, I was like walking one day, and I literally just all of a sudden had a pool of blood just run down my leg. It was awful.
I'm not laughing at him having medical complications, but the way he's talking, like, this is a Lifetime movie. What?
Implants taken out. They still don't really understand what happened. But anywhere, like, my entire chest was just like covered in like intense hives. And like, it just kept growing. It kept spreading. Like, it didn't matter. Like, even though like it was like at the top of my shoulders, and like he didn't even do anything up there, like no chemicals or anything. So it's just really interesting. And then, yeah, similar to what you had going on, Javier, with the estrogen. I learned mine was also high for 8 months, and that was my last straw too. And rage and grief, just big rage and grief and learning. I mean, you just feel violated, like, because they just destroyed your levels. It's insane.
I don't know if it's necessarily they, like big T, like they. It's the person who did that to you. It is the doctor that did that to you. It's not them. It's that person. You know what I mean? Like, there's a distinction there.
Yeah, that's all I got.
It's not all doctors.
It's like screaming in the night. No one can hear you. It just sounds like
I'm screaming in the night because of everything Kevin Jones has to say to me. Kevin Jones sounds fake. It very well might be.
Of personal trauma. And if people had an understanding of what you were going through.
And all the trauma is valid. Absolutely.
It's very painful hearing you guys having to have gone through all this so long.
And like, we're not about to assign blame to any of these individuals for anything that they experienced. Like we're not here to victim blame. They all went through very traumatic things, and I can empathize for them, but my empathy is guided by my what? Discernment.
All right. So we're going to go back to Nicholas. This question is regarding how you feel with regards to the society at large and the LGBTQIA.
God.
How do you feel with regards to any sort of stigmatization, discrimination that you get from these general communities?
Oh, that's funny because I was talking to my sister about this. She's in the Navy, and she's on one of the battleships, and she just calls me today being like,
is this real life?
And I was telling her about the people from high school, people from college, about like commenting on my social media, because I like talking about detransition. Like, it excites me. It's fun to talk about this stuff, and because I'm passionate about it. So obviously I'm going to trigger some people. I like doing that. It's kind of fun to see how people react, because a lot of people react from a place of trauma. So it's obvious when I see people.
Oh, the call's coming from inside Mary.
That seemingly are all about loving inclusion, wanting to accept people. They're just commenting really mean stuff, horrible stuff. And it's almost like
what?
If you're wanting to support gay people, why are you attacking me? That's kind of homophobic, isn't it? But not that it's like them being homophobic because I'm gay, but it's just still like, it's still not nice to be treating people that way.
Well, if it's not about them being homophobic, not because you're gay, then it's not homophobia, no? Like, make it make sense. This is all just mental gymnastics for this one. He is so young. He is so young. I can hear it in the way he's talking.
Had nasty experiences online from that, but at the same time, there have been such beautiful experiences.
Are people being nasty to you because you're denouncing transness as a whole, or are they denouncing you, or are they being nasty to you because you detransitioned? I think that's a very distinct difference there.
Many awesome people. They're connecting online, like being part of Gays Against Groomers. I've connected with such awesome people. I've met good friends where we can just talk about conspiracy theories that's happening in the world. We can talk about how, stuff like that just, we can't really talk about with people that are like so lived out that they can't even hear you.
I'm never eating dinner. This is just
you immediately. So I've had awesome
I am not demonizing you because of your detransition. I am demonizing you because of you denouncing trans people. Why does everything start with D?
And being able to create art and then sharing that with the world through like talking about internalized homophobia through my art, people being able to relate to that has been such an awesome experience.
Again, we talked about that in the beginning. That's problematic.
Yeah, we definitely connect with a lot of like-minded people in this organization, and everybody's looking for a very specific kind of friend, somebody who really understands them. So you want to get around a community of like-minded people and find.
Do you need to get a community? Do you need to get yourself around a community of like-minded people, or can you just find people who are nice and kind and open to everyone? I think there's a very distinct difference there. Are you finding people who are just advocates for human rights in general, or are you attempting to create an echo chamber of people who only believe what you do?
You find your new best friend, maybe.
There's a difference.
All right, Javier. Have you felt any stigmatization or discrimination against you from the society or from the LGBTQIA?
I have, like I said earlier, I had to it took me about 3 doctors to finally have someone write me a referral to speak to a therapist, because the first 3 wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. The moment I told them that I'm detransitioning, they told me to get out. It was a lot of...
Like, I'm not calling them a liar, because that would be very stressful if that actually happened, but I feel like we're missing something. I'd like, deep down in my soul, I feel like we're missing information here.
I told me that I could potentially have like a whole lawsuit against those 3 doctors for discriminating against me because I'm detransitioning, but that's just something personally I wouldn't pursue, because it's just too much stress that my body just at the moment cannot handle.
Something's missing there.
The transgender friend that I had mentioned earlier.
That's not the whole story. I'm almost positive. I was
no longer going to go by my preferred name, that I realized I made a mistake. He stopped talking to me for about 3 months, and then we started talking again. And every time we did, he would just like bring up instances of certain bills that were passed in states, like Ron DeSantis's famous "Don't Say Gay" bill, where it doesn't allow pornographic material in any type of school.
That's not what the "Don't Say Gay" bill is about. We didn't need the legislation outlawing pornographic material in schools is not regulated by the recent Don't Say Gay bill. That is not even close. No, don't say that. That's stupid.
And that was the moment I realized, like, that was just someone I cannot in good conscience associate with.
That is so stupid. That's the stupidest thing. Actually, no, well, the bassoon guy. No, I just... So before that, just porn was being shared in schools everywhere all the time, and it was legal to do so. Get a grip. That is not the reality.
I actually heard about Gays Against Groomers through Pink News. Well, someone who I can't remember if they were affiliated with them at the time or they used to affiliate, bashing them. And now I'm glad that I'm a part of Gays Against Groomers because I've met so many people who've gone through my situation. And it's sad to say that I hear people who go through the detransition, but just actually hearing 3 other people tell the stories, it truly breaks my heart. It truly does.
Same, but not for the same reasons.
Yeah, that's intense. We're getting short on time, so I'm just going to move along here.
We're getting short on time.
Emma.
Okay, yeah. Believe it or not, in 2020, when I first started to realize I'm just going to let it play out and I'm going to be who I was supposed to be since my birth, one of the first places I turned to was actually the LGBTQ here in St. Petersburg. And believe it or not, when I told them my story, they wanted nothing to do with me. And I was really quite shocked by that.
But who's like they? It's not like it's a big boardroom where all the queer people sit and they pass a vote on how they're going to act. It's like, okay, maybe you found a community of people of like even 10 people. Probably wasn't that many. You can't say that no queer person wanted anything to do with you. That is so... It's not, what am I trying to say? It's not idiosyncratic. It's not colloquial. It's anecdotal. You can't assign that to every queer person in St. Petersburg, Emma.
And so I'm like, okay, the only thing I could try to do now is find people that I could talk to that would help me get through it. And believe it or not, one of my absolute best friends and somebody I almost considered a sister was working against me and actually making it sound like they were trying to help me. And they actually were hurting me behind the scenes. But because of the fact I couldn't see them in person to feel that type of energy, I didn't know.
What does that even mean?
Since I have come out and said basically what I was, what happened to me, and on my YouTube videos, I have received some of the most horrible things I've ever had. People wishing absolute harm on me.
That's not me. I don't wish harm on you, Emma. I wish you a long and happy life, but I also wish you not manipulating other people with your story.
A text the other day on Facebook, and it would make most people cringe. And ironically, this all comes from the LGBTQ community. And that's what I don't understand, because it's like a lot of them...
You mean it all comes from the LGBTQ community? Like if I sent hate to somebody, it's not appropriate for them to assign my hate to all queer people in the world. It's just, that's discrimination. That's just literally what it is. You can't, not one person is a monolith for any community.
Every day you pick up TikTok, you pick up YouTube, you see them pushing this transition, you're pushing trans, pushing this, pushing that.
No,
but when you go...
Nope, sorry, incorrect, wrong. Nobody's pushing transition. We are pushing people to be themselves and to be authentically that and support people through whatever choices they want to make. I would support a trans person transitioning as much as I support these people who have detransitioned. Their experiences are equally as valid. They should both have the space to do what they want in this world. Neither experience is demonized and should be outlawed.
That's what they say. They just let you go. So half of these people that I talked to were influenced by them. And then when they realize they made a mistake, they get exiled completely and are just thrown out. And
very
to me,
dramatic.
that's no different than somebody coming out that they're gay to their parents and their parents throw them out to the curb, because a lot of them lost their parents and they lost the group that held them now. And now I can see why there's more problems. But yeah, I truly believe that I didn't get the support I needed, and I still never did.
Wow. Yep. Abandoned by the community. So that is promoting this. As soon as you realize, hey, maybe I wasn't the right candidate for this. Obviously, Emma, much different situation for you.
Then, hey, you're around shitty people if they're not supportive of you in every single way. As long as you're not hurting anybody, you should be able to do exactly what you want to. So, like, you are around shitty people. That only speaks to those people in particular.
But, yeah, we've been hearing sort of lack of support from the LGBT for so long. Kevin, can you discuss your feeling?
Okay, besties, this has been so long. We're exactly in the middle of this video now. And so... we're gonna listen to Kevin's answer here. He's inevitably gonna say some of the most wild shit to us right now, so we'll see what Kevin has to say, and then we're gonna put a pin in this and we're gonna come back for a part 2. So if you're interested in watching the second half of this I don't know what adjective I want to put here, but if you're interested in watching the second half of the Zoom call here with me, check out episode 11. That might not be up yet, but it probably will be if you're watching this a few days after I posted this one. So yeah, let's see what Kevin has to say, and then we're going to wrap this up, bestie. I am exhausted.
Stigmatization, discrimination.
Stop coaching him.
From the LGBTQIA mafia.
Mafia.
Oh
yeah, Nicholas thought that was funny. Yeah, the mafia. Yeah.
Really cared about Facebook, but when I detransitioned, I thought it would be a really fun social experiment. I
like if you were struggling with such deep dark depression and the ideation of ending your life, I don't know. Like, again, it's not victim blaming, but why were you engaging in a social experiment on Facebook, the literal wasteland of social media, when you were in such a fragile state? Like, I get it. Like, I've made stupid decisions before too. We're not victim blaming, but that's interesting.
I think I had like, I don't know. Well, yeah, there was about like 600 or 700 people that basically either blocked me or unfriended me after saying I detransitioned.
You had that many Facebook friends? Damn.
I don't support children taking hormones or having body parts removed. Of course, called a Nazi multiple times, and yeah, it's I hate to, basically repeat.
It's just all the way and you frame it, right? Like, I don't support children getting cut open with scalpels. I'm like, what if that was life-saving surgery? What if that was an organ transplant? What if that was a new knee? Like, it's just, it's framing this, it's manipulation by omission, right? You're only providing information that proves the point that you are trying to uphold, right? It would be like having, like, these women are getting their breasts cut off and it's torturous, and it's like, what if it was a mastectomy because they had cancer? Like, what if this was life-saving surgery? There are inevitably things that will go wrong within those surgeries because that's just the reality of the world of which we live in. But it's not, yeah, this is a masterclass in manipulation here. And I don't know if these people are aware of it. I don't think they're lying. I don't think they're trying to be deceptive on purpose. I truly believe that. But yeah.
I was saying, but I mean, it's real. It's pretty wild. I was having lunch with a friend that helped me through my addiction days. I was telling her a little bit about this, and she just happened to pick me up, and she's like, I have to leave, and she just left me at the restaurant. Right? So
was it because you were detransitioning, or was it because you were denouncing transitioning, period? It's a very distinct difference. If I had a friend who was detransitioning, I would not leave them there. I would support them as much as humanly possible. But if they were there denouncing trans people as a whole and not as a valid experience, I would leave as well. So I feel like we're not getting the whole story. Just like Nicholas here, or not Nicholas. Who was the one? Javier.
It's, and there wasn't even like room for like conversation or anything. This is a person that was like a friend of mine for like 8 years.
And I don't think it's malicious. I don't think Kevin thinks he's lying. I think the perspective is so warped that they believe their own nonsense. And hey, I am particularly positioned to make that claim as well. Like, it's all my opinion and it's all my best guess. Like, I don't know these people. I'm only giving my opinions on like this little snippet of one whole friggin' hour that I've seen of them. But like, I've seen patterns and I've lived long enough and I'm emotionally intelligent enough and I've done enough studies in education and neuroscience to have a basic understanding of enough of how some of this stuff works. So take it or leave it. I'm just a girl on the internet with a microphone and too many opinions. But anyway.
It's wild. But I think the biggest thing to really reflect on this is when people are in something that they feel this intense about, I think it's really important to not attack them personally. I think it's really important to understand, like, well, where are they coming from?
Absolutely. Well, that's what we're doing here.
Fear and like unresolved feelings in there.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that we need to go at is come at this with a side of compassion instead of, they're a mafia.
How is he so self-aware, but yet he's still sitting on this Zoom call? What is happening?
Or anything like that. These are honest people that are trying to do their best thing and live.
Absolutely.
Honestly, and they have been
absolutely.
We've all been misled. And what it really comes down to is how we can not create a greater divide, but
say it, Kevin.
Come together more.
How did Kevin? Oh my God, Kevin, I love you. Maybe the ayahuasca did do something for this man. That is so okay. Oh my God, what is Robert going to say? We're done here. We're done.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Well, guys, we're at the end of our first hour. If you're listening to this through a radio broadcast and you're thinking, what, there's more show? Yeah, there's more. And you're going to be able to pick up the second half wherever amazing podcasts are being had. Spotify, Apple iTunes.
Amazing podcast. Just like mine. I have a podcast on YouTube and Spotify. Go check it out. D-Talk with David Day. Ding!
Podbean, wherever. And then just go right into the second.
Podbean. There's a joke there, but it's too late. I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm very hungry. So I'm just Podbean. That's funny to me.
And so with that, I'm going to say goodbye here, and we'll talk to you next week, or we'll catch you online here in just a minute.
Amazing. Oh, okay, team, we're going to cut it there. Thank you so much for watching episode 10 of Dismantling Hate here with me, your host, David Day, on YouTube. If you're interested in watching the second half of the Zoom call with me, I'm sure it's going to be as unhinged as the first one. Hopefully we're doing more ayahuasca and crack in the desert. I can't believe this. So if you're interested in spending more time with me, check out my playlist of my other 9, at least at this point, Dismantling Hate videos. Check me out on Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe to the channel, like, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Like, this is really, I'm gooped, I'm gagged, I'm bewildered, and I do have empathy for these people. I think their experiences are all valid, but I think the way that they are weaponizing their experiences in order to demonize transitioning and trans people as a whole is very harmful. It seems like most of them lack self-awareness. All of their experiences are very quite different and vast, and yeah, this is really interesting. Again, please do not go leave these people any hate comments. I don't wish them any harm. I wish them long, happy lives where they don't continue to influence people in a negative way. But of course, we all think a negative way is something different. So yes, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. And until next time, goodbye. That was insane.